Welcome to the Walk-Ins Podcast. We are a United Methodist Church located in Louisville, Kentucky. On this podcast, you'll hear a selection of messages, interviews, and more with one of our pastors. If you're ever around the area, please be sure to stop by and say hi, or visit our website at walkinsumc.com. Now, I hope you'll enjoy today's episode.
The lie we have been sold is that we need more, better, or newer, right? I mean, commercial organizations depend on and thrive on our natural curiosity as human beings. If you look at cell phone companies and how they constantly find ways to upgrade you to new phones and contracts, you can spend 12 hours, right, in one of those shops. I mean, if your email box also looks anything like mine, you'll no doubt find countless emails arriving every week that are ads and promotions for new stuff, right? And that number next to that app is in the trillions, right, of unread emails, and it just seems too daunting, so why look at it? This luring of the newer and the better breeds discontentment within us. Here's another example. How often do end caps at stores tempt you? I mean, these are the piles of stuff at the end of each aisle in stores, whether at the grocery store or retail store. The end cap of every aisle is an attractive, eye-catching way to help buyers notice commonly purchased products that they may need on their visit. I mean, these utilizing end caps is all about proper branding. And many end caps are used to promote special deals. It's on clearance, 50% off, last chance, or they're meant to convince you that it is a special deal. How often are you persuaded by these end caps? Because also the part of that, they try to convince you that what's on your list is not enough, that you forgot to write something down. And when you look at these end caps, we have to ask ourselves, do we actually need this item? Is it actually a good deal at all, or is it just a good deal for the week? Is this item necessary for me to live? Does it add any value to my life? See, those are other questions I think we should be asking about everything that we have. And there's a passage in 1 Timothy in which Paul is writing to a young leader named Timothy. There you go. And I think it's important to imagine the heart behind the passages in which we read from Paul. And in this passage I'm about to read for us is wise parental Paul and a young mentee Timothy. And the heart of the passage is him being a mentor to him. I mean, do you remember your mentor? Maybe someone who coached you through tough times, maybe a person who you looked up to walk through with you on a complicated situation. So Paul, a beloved mentor and father figure, writing encouragement and promises to Timothy certain things, his spiritual son. And to me, I think that's important for us to look at that here in this passage that might feel cold or feel like a fearless commander making charge orders to his soldiers on a battlefield, but it's rather a passionate and compassionate spiritual guide to share life lessons. So Paul writes these words to Timothy, "Of course, there is great gain and godliness combined with contentment, for we brought nothing into the world so that we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with these. But those who want to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, and in their eagerness to be rich, some have wandered away from faith and pierced themselves with many pains. But as for you, man of God, shun all this. Pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, gentleness. Fight the good fight of faith. Take hold of the eternal life to which you have been called, for which you made the good confession in the presence of many witnesses." That was 1 Timothy chapter 6, 6 through 12. So he writes, there is great gain and godliness combined with contentment. I mean, first off, we have to ask what the word godliness, I mean, it means. It sounds like a pretty high and holy word for me, or a way of that we've used it as against somebody as not being godly, right? And usually it's somebody we don't agree with on this, that, or the other. It's often used as a weapon against somebody else. But godliness in this passage involves not just orthodoxy, whether that could be right doctrine or belief, but also orthopraxy, which is right living. It's walking the talk. Is doing what you say and you believe. See, Paul says to Timothy, hey, there's great gain in godliness combined with contentment. And he may be saying to us as well, right beliefs are great and right living are great when we are content in life. Faith is about much more than what we know and believe, but it's an attitude of trust in God and embodying contentment. It's not something that happens overnight, but it's something that we grow in with spiritual practices. Then he writes, hey, if you take a look at these things, the spiritual virtues that will grow within us when we pursue it is this: righteousness, godliness, there's that word again, faith, love, endurance, gentleness. When we grow in these virtues, as we prioritize and work on a relationship with God, hey, this is when the good stuff actually happens. This is when we actually grow in a relationship with God. And oh yeah, we also grow with other people. Contentment. You see, I think we got to get away from contentment meaning just an outward state of affairs, like what it means to be rich or wealthy or powerful. And I also think we need to say, hey, contentment isn't something we force on somebody else, right? Or say, hey, you always have to be happy, be content with what you have. But rather, it's this inward state of mind of being satisfied with what we have that comes from God. And it's something we have to work on over time. I think it's something we grow in grace in, and the world, if we just want to name it for what it is, tries to pull us away from contentment, right? Remember that we need the more, the better, the newer we just spoke about, right? And it tempts us to look for contentment in other places, with other things, rather than focus on what it means to be content with God. And I think one of those things that pulls us away more than anything is our finances. I mean, this is a weird slippery slope. Here we go. Buckle up. When we was talking about money in the church, but we got to talk about it because the Bible talks a whole lot about that and less about the other things that we actually argue about, right? I mean, but it's ironic here in Scripture here in this passage, it doesn't say that money is the root of all kinds of evil, right? Do you remember it's the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil? That's the true part. It's not money itself, but it's the love of money that is the root of this. I think often that's one of the most misquoted scriptures of all time. I mean, when they talk about that, especially coming from the church or from the pulpit, but you see, I don't think making money is evil. Can it be? Sure. I don't think spending money is evil. Can it be? Sure. But the love of money that overtakes us becomes the root of all kinds of evil. And Paul says, hey, through this eagerness, when people are just trying to be rich, to gain power, they pierce themselves with many pains. And it can be easy. I'm going to give you some statistics here that you can look up later. It could be easy to see, hey, the uber wealthy get this, right? We see it happening all the time. We are in the middle of the NFL season, National Football League season. And if you know me personally, you know I'm a Tampa Bay Bucks fan, right? There's not much to cheer for. All right, we're in our post-Tom Brady season. But anyways, that's not about the Bucks, although maybe it should be. But this may or may not surprise you about the NFL that in the 3 years or less that the average pro NFL career lasts, so if that's 3 years or less, players can expect to make about $2 million a year. Now, there's people who will make a whole lot more than that. There's people who make less than that, but that's just the average. But here, even $2 million a year, the stakes are pretty high. Right? You have weekly salaries, you have hefty bonuses, you have other payments, and these players really get one shot at setting themselves for life. Here's the statistic for you. Statistics suggest that you heard that, 78% of NFL players go bankrupt or fall into severe financial stress just within 2 years of retirement. 78% go bankrupt or are under severe financial stress. And you may say, okay, it's the NFL. What about the NBA? Well, for basketball players, that it's only slightly better at 60% of financial ruins within the first 5 years of retirement. So you have all these signing bonuses. You have people who front load their careers while still getting their toes wet in the world, right? And so you see them spending on these lavish lifestyles. They have $1 million cars, they have mansions, they have extravagant parties. They buy more land and more property than they know what to do with. Now, I don't think I know any former NFL stars or NBA stars at Watkins here in my church. I do know folks who have gone on to them, but I don't have too big of a personal. Maybe I should start connecting with them. But I think it starts to align with what our human condition says. that we can gain all the money we can, but we need to be intentional in the ways that we earn, save, and give it, right? We probably don't have $1 million signing bonuses in our career, although I'm still looking for that. With my ordination, I thought I was promised that. Guess not. But we sure do have resources. And part of growing grace, I would argue, is developing an attitude towards money that honors God and serves other people. That money is a tool to be used for the greater good, not something to be accumulated for its own sake. See, John Wesley had a lot to say about this. He had a lot to say about a lot of stuff, but in his famous sermon, The Use of Money, he said, hey, here's 3 simple rules for money. You should earn all you can, save all you can, and give all you can. Earn, save, and give all you can, right? And he did have some caveats, right? You should earn it all you can, but not at the detriment to your own soul or health, and also not at the own detriment or health of your neighbor, right? We can see how that. Save all you can, right? In ways that are intentionally looking forward to the future, right? Intentionally planning, not just burying it for burying's sake out of fear, but ways that we can plan for the future for us and our families. And then, therefore, we are able to give all you can. And Wesley modeled this in his own life. He became one of the richest people in London from cash. I mean, from printing and publishing along the way. And he used that money by giving it away, even to the point, here's a really cool story, that at his own funeral, he specified that people without homes should be hired to bury him rather than professionals. So even in his grave, he was seeking to give that money away. And every year he lived on 10 pounds, which really is not that much. And no matter how much money he made, he wanted to leverage his resources for the greater good. Earn, save, so that you can give all you can. Let's go back to the end caps. What would be on your end cap? What really makes you content? What helps you grow in righteousness and godliness and faith and love and endurance and gentleness? Another way of saying this is, do your spending habits reflect what you really value in life? I mean, if some random person looked at your bank statement, right, and they could see, here's how you earned your money, here's how much money you're saving, and here's how you're actually spending your money every day, would you be proud of what they would see? Would that person be able to say, hey, I know this person values more than anything else X, Y, and Z? And if it doesn't, and what could you change? How could it really reflect what you value in this life? How can we really practice being content this week? Let's work on that today.